All right, guys, welcome back for another episode of the A Better Me Equals a Better We podcast. I am your host, Trey. Super excited to be back with you guys and talk about such a great topic. This episode is episode number 20. We reached that 2-0 mark, right? Officially out of our teens. And this title of this episode is going to be Homelessness in America. I'll say that again, homelessness in America. We know homelessness is just all over the place. And in we see it a lot in a lot of major cities, and also in a lot of cities that are not major, right? Homelessness is a real thing. And I really wanted to dive into that and really just get a lot of insight from our panelists and you guys as well. Because as we all know, homelessness doesn't always look like, feel like what we may see in movies or what we think that it looks like just on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, Crystal, I'll start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself for our viewers and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Crystal Hernandez. I actually have experienced homelessness firsthand, so I know a lot about the topic, and so I actually work at a shelter, or I should say, an organization that helps people experiencing homelessness.
Oh yeah, super. Great experience in this, and I really think that Chris was going to be able to shed a lot of light on not just some of the misconceptions about homelessness, but as she said, it was something that she previously experienced. So this is something that maybe someone that's going through this right now, or if you know someone that's going through this, you'll definitely get some tips to help get out of homelessness and prayerfully stay out of homelessness, right? So,
Yes.
Natalie, why don't you introduce yourself for our viewers and tell them just a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Natalie Newsom. I'm Trey Quan's grand aunt. And my experience with homelessness is having worked in the system, the welfare system, retired from the county of San Diego and having worked in a rescue mission in San Diego. And also as a child, if I look at the definition of homelessness as our government states it, growing up, we were homeless. So that's why I'm here. Is that enough?
And one of the things that I love that you said is like, if you look at the standard, a lot of us are quote unquote homeless, right? But we
Yes.
Mhm.
definitely don't look like it or feel like it at times. And when you have a great family, you might meet the standard for homelessness, but you might not necessarily feel homeless, so to say.
Mhm.
So when we looked at homelessness, there are a few different categories, right? When we talk about the standard of homelessness, one of those things are chronic homelessness, right? So someone who they don't have somewhere to stay on a regular basis. Shelters are like their permanent residence. Rather than just an emergency arrangement, then we can also look at it as like transitional homeless, right? Where on the other hand, people may have gone to shelters for a short period and they're transitioning into somewhere more stable where they'll be able to stay and be able to live going forward. And then we have episodic type, which refers to people who are in and out of the homeless situation due to like personal problems, like mental health, if you are unemployed, substance abuse, like a lot of those different things, right? So, Natalie, I'll start with you. Which of these categories do you believe is the most common and why?
Wow, that's I love when people on the show say that's a good question. That's for me to buy time. That's a good question. Um, I say when the categories that you mentioned, if I'm a statistics person, if I look at the statistics and I'm doing it from a eagle eye view, talking to policy and decision makers, I think I would talk about homelessness, chronic homelessness first, because I think that's something that's just been swept under the carpet, and we look at people and we say, oh, they're homeless. they choose to be homeless, they want to be homeless, and that's not the case. So I think that's the one that I think that troubles my heart right now. And then the situational one, I just don't think there's any one category. I think we put them in categories so we know how to address them. But I think they're all just as important. And even adding a fourth category to it, to make it personal. Say in 2014 or 15, I may not have been without shelter, but emotionally I was homeless because my lifestyle changed and I lived from paycheck to paycheck. So emotionally I
Wow.
was homeless. So I think that has just as much strain when you're just making ends meet constantly, 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 living in the fear of being evicted, if that
Mm.
makes sense. I think that's one that you can add on to when you're trying not to give up, when you're emotionally homeless. I'm
Hmm.
not going to do the other one and say it's spiritual, but just think about that too. Spiritually homeless.
Mm.
Right, right. And I really love the way that you put that in, and especially the fact that you added that in, right?
Mhm.
There are a lot of people who may be experiencing that, right? Where I have a roof over my head, but it feels like any day now could be
Mhm.
the day. Especially
Mhm.
now with the pandemic, a lot
Yeah.
of people were forced to not be able to pay their bills. And then they
Mhm.
had the pandemic forgiveness, and now it's just like we need all our money and we need it now, right? So I think a lot of people are in that particular category right now. So I'm really excited that you brought that up. And whenever I do a topic, I always like to start semi like in the beginning, right, or in the beginning stages, right? And looking at the beginning stages of homelessness for some people, Crystal, at what age do you believe is most common for someone to become homeless?
Um, for me, it's youth. So I know for myself, I was in shelters as well when I was little. So I kind of was familiar with how the system worked, what was out there. I knew there were services out there that you could tap into. I know there was a domestic violence situation that my mom experienced, and we ended up in a domestic violence shelter. Then my mom and dad got back together, and then we were at the Salvation Army, different shelters that we ended up um, being at. So, Miss Natalie said the um, the fourth category. You're right. There is actually a fourth category when it comes to that because it's called hidden homelessness,
Mhm.
which means that you need those support systems, and sometimes you don't
Right.
qualify for them.
Right.
And then there's also and then so we don't fall under that standard homeless statistics, but there is that category. So I was
Mhm.
like, oh wait, you're right. So
Yeah.
Right, right,
yeah.
right, right. And that's so interesting because I speak to a lot of single parents or maybe just families that they're trying their best. That you might have two incomes or one income, and by the state standard, you make enough, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
you might need a little food stamps. Like you might
Mhm.
need,
Yeah.
a few extra dollars and stuff like that. But because the state says
Yeah.
that you're above this threshold, now you fall
Yeah.
into that situation where things are tighter than they should be, and you're in and out of situations like that. And just to follow up, because you talked about being a kid and having to be in situations where you were in a shelter and seeing different
Hmm.
things growing up. What type of effects do you believe that being homeless can have on a child or maybe a young adult, like an adolescent?
The instability, I would say
Yeah.
instability and the trauma from why you got there, why you became homeless. So there's always that trauma involved. We don't know the underlying issues when it comes to the homeless part of it, to that
Mhm.
homeless aspect of it. Um, and most of the time, there's something going on, and you know why you became homeless.
Right,
Mhm.
right. So like
And
a
I,
traumatic experience behind it. Go ahead,
yeah.
Natalie.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback
Yeah.
on that trauma? I know some people close to my heart don't like me to say about trauma and triggers, but even myself as a child, having been homeless, my first experience with homelessness was when I was in the second grade, and my brother and I were walking home from school, and the people were talking. They said, "Oh," kind of like in Spanish, "Pobrecito." They were feeling so sorry for us because they said
Mm,
their parents are at work, and all of our stuff was set outside, evicted. And I
yeah.
remember asking, could I get my teddy bear? I know this probably sounds crazy, second grade, and they said no, we can't let you get anything, and they took our stuff
No.
away. And a neighbor took
Oh,
us in the house until my parents got home. So as I grew up understanding this and what happened and living from place to place, to this day, right now, even being stable and retired and teaching and having adequate income, on the first of the month, I like run my rent in. I'm so fearful.
Yeah,
And I could have the rent there and 2 or 3 months rent money in the bank, but because I haven't really talked about that, my heart still skips a beat whenever I pay my rent.
oh, I feel
I
you
live
on
with
that
that
one.
trauma. And
Yeah,
and that's the
yeah.
whole thing where we talked about addressing mental illness. It's a trauma for me and it's a trigger. And I've learned to
Mhm.
talk to people that I trust and love about, girl, but you fine, you ain't gonna never be homeless. As long as I got a roof over my head. But people, and I'm gonna just be so candid, that's been a fear for me since second grade. And I lived in one house from 1983 to 2019. So imagine being
Yeah.
able to pay your bills but still have that trauma. You know,
yeah,
just yeah, like you can have January rent paid and January 2nd, I'm trying to make sure I got February rent because I don't ever want to be like that. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge that you never get. I don't think you ever get over that trauma unless you talk openly now and you
Yeah,
address that
Yeah.
issues and that stability. And once again, not trying to make it spiritual, but um, my faith in God is what keeps me out of the nut house. Let's just say, yeah.
hey, listen, and we
I
got to stay
agree.
out of there.
I agree, Miss Nanny.
Yeah.
So, how much, and just going off of that, right, in that story, and I for the sake of the conversation, I've never heard that story before, but
I don't tell you everything, just about.
nah, I'm kidding. I've heard that one before, but how much of a factor, right? Speaking about eviction, how much of a factor, Natalie, do you think that eviction plays in homelessness?
You mean somebody being evicted?
Yeah,
I think that's one aspect of it. When someone gets evicted, that's just an aspect of someone losing their place. Sometimes people leave before they get evicted with nowhere really to go or temporary dwelling to prevent an eviction. They give up the keys, they give up the place to prevent that. There's so many aspects, so many legs to becoming homeless and the conditions of homeless today. I think we're just scratching the surface. I just want us to open up today and talk about it. But eviction is just a part of it because you could be living with someone. I could have a roommate and the place is in my name, and I could say, you know what, you got to go, oh boy. I don't want to be bothered anymore. And then he could be homeless. So yeah, yeah.
I've seen that, and it's funny because Trey just said in our comments, how about David Banner? And if anybody's ever seen The Incredible Hulk,
Mm-hmm.
at certain points, like after he turned into the Hulk, and then he came back down and he was a regular person again. They'd always show that end scene where he have that stick with that little with his
Yeah,
clothes on the back of
yeah,
the stick,
yeah.
and so definitely, and I think that that's one thing that, like you said, in this situation that um, I know for me personally, I'm not gonna say it's only men. But from the male perspective, from what I've heard from a lot of my friends, like they've gone through things like that where they've been invested with someone, they live with someone, and then one day they maybe get into an argument and they say, you know what, you got to go, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
from there, like Trey said, now you're David Banner. You got the stick with your clothes on the
Yeah.
end of the stick,
Mm-hmm.
with the violin playing
Yeah.
in the
Mm-hmm.
background,
Mm-hmm.
and we make jokes about stuff like that, or you might see that on a TV show, and it may not feel like how it feels in real life, to be somewhere, to sleep on the train. I've personally slept on the train before, like the entire night, longest night of my life. like the longest night of my life, right? So imagine the people that have to do that every
every
single
day.
day, right? And then you think about people who are chronically homeless and they're seasoned, like so they're used to it, and it's just a different situation, right? Um, Crystal, what are some suggestions that you would give somebody that may be currently dealing with eviction or may feel like they're on the verge of eviction, and they need a little advice, like they don't know where to go from here. They've always seen people be evicted and never actually be able to get around it. So what are some suggestions you would give to someone like that?
A suggestion I would give would be to go to the legal aid. There's a legal
Mhm.
aid. So depending on what, there's tenant rights that they can fall under, and they might not even know it, because they have, depending on what the situation is, they have, say if, I don't know, say if you're in a roommate situation and you got into an argument with somebody, right? So legally, they've been living under that roof, they've been receiving mail under that roof. They can't just kick them out on the street. There's a law. I think it's like 30 days, 30 to 60 days now. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I used to be, I used to know a bunch of the laws because I used to have my certification in property management. So that
Mhm.
would fall under certain criteria. So it's usually 30 to 60 days. You'd have to serve them a legal notice and tell them they have, those 30 to 60 days to move out. You can't just kick somebody out on the street, especially right now with that COVID eviction thing that
Yeah.
they got
Yeah.
going on. You can't
Mhm.
kick anybody out right now.
Mhm.
They'd have to
Mhm.
fall under some type of laws and stuff. But I would tell them to go to the legal aid, see what rights they do have, and take it from there. Usually legal aid is free, and it's a free service that they can tap into. And yeah,
Yeah.
And Google is really powerful, right? So for everyone that's listening, even if, let's say, for example, you like, where do I find the legal aid, right? Like, we're not in
hmm
the 70s, 80s, and 90s where you have to find a newspaper,
Right.
scroll it down. Like, we
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
Google, right? You go on Google,
yes,
legal
Mhm.
aid in whatever area you're in, regardless of where you're listening. So New York, California, Florida, wherever you are, legal aid for your state, and look into those things, because again, this is something that's really common,
Mhm.
that people really don't talk about. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of go over just a bit, with you, Crystal, is the look of homelessness, right? Because a lot of times when people talk about homelessness, they think like the people that are sitting there with the cup and that, oh, I need money, or they got the signs and they're walking up and down the
right.
block. But what about, for me, I always think about those people who tell stories, like success stories, and they talk about how they were going to college and they might have been sleeping in their car all 4 years, right? Or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
So for you, what are some things like you haven't experienced it, that you could say like is a big misconception about being homeless?
Okay. So yeah. So to me, I've seen it all. I've seen it all since I've been working at that shelter program. So I mean, we've had people that are professors that come in, that fell on hard times, that came in because, they got a divorce, there's different faces to homelessness. And, people tend to stereotype, like you said, oh, the guy at the corner with the cup of change, stuff like that. But there's, you know, people that look like you and I, that like we do right now, and
Mhm.
um, I mean, there's a mom using her last $5 that are standing in the line of the grocery store. We don't know somebody's story, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, it's not just the people that are at the corner with the sign. There's people that, like I said, that fell on hard times, that didn't know what resources were out there, and they ended up in that place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Natalie said in our comments, there's high school students, that are homeless, and you would never know as a student. And then she said, she went on to say that I went to school with some. And
Absolutely.
and that's another thing that's a
Mhm.
little bit more common than we may think. right?
Mhm.
Like people, we
Mhm.
have adolescents who are homeless and still going to school. Natalie, you having worked for welfare and things of that sort, what are some things that you would suggest, to someone that may be listening, that may be younger, they may be 15, 16, and experiencing homelessness? What are some things that you would suggest to that individual?
Honestly, I can be real raw here, and I know when I come on here and I'm applying for jobs, I teach right now that I know they tell me they watch this, and I really don't care anymore because this is the truth. If I ran into a young person right now that was 17 or 16, and they told me they were homeless and they were in school and they were doing real good, I wouldn't refer them to the system. I wouldn't. I'm angry with the system and what it's done with
Mhm.
our children.
Mhm.
Um, I
Mhm.
might I might reach out to a social worker, or I'm blessed to know some people that run welfare offices that are directors, and I would say I don't want to drag this child through the system because I was a foster mom for years, and all those foster kids weren't lying to me. Ugly things happen in foster homes. I don't feel like this system right now that we have is safe for our babies. Some of it
Not at
is,
all.
and I know that's a direct slap in the face for some of my colleagues. And I teach classes on foster care to welfare officers in the 58 counties, and I talk to them about the safety of the children and making sure they're safe. And a lot of them stay like that because they don't want to go in the system. So we need to do a
Mhm.
lot better, if that makes sense. I would
Yeah,
look, I probably would refer them more to a transitional housing, because if this young person is able to maintain school, as Natalie Nicole said here, the high school students, and they're doing well, I would maybe talk to them about going to legal aid or getting some type of support so that they could get emancipated from the system. And there's a lot of good money in transitional housing. And please don't take me
Yes.
wrong, for those watching. There are some great foster homes, but they're, to me, the ones from what the kids told me, there are more bad ones than good ones. So I wouldn't,
Yes.
if I wouldn't introduce them to the system. Um, I do want an audience with Joe Biden and Governor Newsom, because I've worked in the welfare system for a long time, and I could tell them why we're still having this homelessness crisis and what's going on, because there's too much money out there for people to still be sleeping under bridges.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
Right.
this
I
is a
agree.
challenge. And I even went on and I sent them for their little thing that they have on Facebook and Instagram. And I sent them an invite to this podcast. I do want an opportunity to have an audience with them. Give me an hour and I could tell you what's wrong with this system. I've been
Yeah,
working on the
Mm.
paper and pull some people in. Crystal's another one that knows. I don't know how much Crystal wants to divulge. I just know she's an amazing woman. So no, I wouldn't invite him in the system. And I challenge anyone on here watching that knows the system to tell me, Natalie, you're wrong. This is how we could do that. But
yeah,
what do you think
yeah,
about that, Crystal?
I like that there's more opportunities for kids to tap into different services nowadays.
Hmm.
There's like teen homes,
Yeah.
like you said, the emancipation process.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's we actually have a few teen programs here in San Diego. I know Urban Street Angels is one of them,
Hmm.
which is an amazing program if you work the program. That's
Yeah.
with any program.
Right.
I know with like you were saying, the foster system, it's kind of whack. I'm not gonna lie. I
Yeah.
had a lot of different man, it just different experiences with them. A lot
Hmm.
of bad that came from it, but there was some good.
Yeah.
My kids were actually adopted out when I was in the program where I work now. I went through the program in 2014 to 2015.
Hmm.
Um, I left there. My kids had already been adopted out while I was inside the program, but only by the grace of God did I have some amazing people, foster care parents
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
adopted my kids,
Hmm.
that allowed me to still remain a part of my kids' life as long as I was doing what I was supposed to be doing,
Hmm.
you know. And to this day, I mean, I get my daughter. My daughter, she's 13 now, and there was a point where I'm just like, oh man, what did the system do to my kid?
right, right, right.
But then it's like, but she has amazing parents that, she has two set of parents now, myself and my husband, and then her adopted dad and her adopted mom. And I always tell her, I said, you're lucky. I said, you're super blessed. I said that you have a lot of people that love you. I said, and
Mhm.
didn't give up on you.
Right, right,
So
right.
yeah, it's not all
Definitely.
bad, but I did experience a lot of bad during that
Yeah,
time. So
yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
and that's one of those things where, and I'm happy that you guys are really shedding light to this, because
yeah,
I've seen not only homeless people in my class, right, in middle school and high school. I've seen people go through the foster system and not have the best life, like where these
yeah,
these these young people were in foster homes with 6 kids
Mhm.
who were taking each other belongings.
Yeah.
It was
yeah,
almost like
yeah,
prison. Like they were
Mhm.
fighting for commissary, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
really a real thing. And
yeah.
what that leads me into when I think about homelessness is trauma, right? Trauma
Mhm.
is such
Mm,
a real thing in a lot of things
Mhm.
that we do, and it's something that I think in this day and age now we're really addressing. Like you see a lot more conversations about mental health, a lot more
Mhm.
conversations about
Mhm.
trauma.
Mhm.
People my age or a little younger, because I'm considered old now to the younger people. Um, they call it protecting your peace, right?
Mhm.
And these are things, conversations that are being had more and more often. So,
yeah.
Crystal, how much can being homeless, or how much do you think being homeless can affect someone's like mentally?
Well, being out, okay. So I'll start with myself. I'll use myself as an example because um, being a woman and being out on the street and not having anywhere to go and putting myself into certain situations where I endangered my life. I put myself in risky situations where, I could have been hurt. I could have been killed. I could have been raped. I could have been, whatever, because I was out there, for a certain period of time by myself without my husband, you know, um, it could have been really bad. Like I always use this as an example because I say, I was addicted and homeless. I said the if the drugs didn't kill me, that lifestyle was going to kill me. You know, because something bad was bound to happen. So
Yeah.
Right, right. And that's such a real thing. That, like you said, like if it's not one, it's another. And I remember in the last episode that we did about mental health, one of the panelists talked about a dual diagnosis, right? And this was
yeah,
a little bit out of context, but I'll bring it into context. And she was talking in the sense of when you are suffering from one mental illness, but instead you self-diagnose yourself and put yourself in a situation where you're living under certain standards as if you have one thing that you don't, or if you are dealing with something, let's say you're dealing with depression and you self-medicate. Now you have two diagnoses, right? Like you have depression
Mhm.
and now you have
Mhm.
an
right,
addiction.
right,
And how I can see that correlation, or how that translates, is just that to be homeless is already one struggle, mentally, physically, emotionally. And then with addiction, regardless of what the addiction is, and I know for me personally, growing up, I saw this a lot. A lot of the homeless people in my area today, like they all have a vice, from what I can
mm,
see. And I think that creates such a huge struggle. So for me personally, I could only imagine what it was like having one, or taking part in one. So for you
yeah,
being someone who can come out and say, listen, I've done both at the same time, and for you to have
yeah,
made it out of that,
yeah,
I think that is just more than amazing. And I'm just so happy for you. That you were able to get past that, and
yeah,
it makes me think about this, right? How now, because we always hear success stories, and me personally, I love to listen to people talk, right? But I like listening to people who talk, who are giving me steps, right? I like, it's good to hear something that's motivating, that feels good, but then when it comes again, like what happens now, right? Like what do I do now? So like, how would somebody pick up, or how do you think that someone can pick up the pieces after becoming homeless?
Mm.
I would say you have to want that change. you know, because somebody could okay, let me put it like this. I was thinking earlier about how you know, they use like the housing first model, right? For to house people, right? But if you haven't taken care of the heart issue,
Mm,
you're going to go back to square one. You know,
Yeah.
you have to heal your heart, you
yeah.
know, not just your mind. It's not just your mind, it's your heart,
Mm,
because we've been broken down, you know, we've been lied to, we've been cheated, we've been, you know, taught different ways that we thought were the correct ways, you know, and if you don't heal that part of you, you're not going to make it. You know,
Right.
you have to heal, you have to heal those broken pieces, you know. And for me it was healing my inner child, you know, that went through a lot of trauma growing up, you know.
Yeah.
And so without healing that, um, I would have continued in my same cycle, you know, self-medicating because I was still hurting, you know. But to me, I started opening.
it froze. Can you hear her? Quan, is it me?
Uh, it looks like she might have a call coming in.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you, Crystal. Okay, let's just have her come back in. Sorry about that, guys. So now, like, just hearing the way that Crystal, you know, talked about homelessness, breaking cycles, right? Healing your heart, like not just your mind, right? And I like
Mm-hmm.
how she made that separation. I
Yeah.
really love how she made that separation from heart to mind, because I think a lot of times we don't address what's in our heart. We try to make it all
Mm-hmm.
technical,
Mm-hmm.
especially now with information being and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I really love how Crystal, how you made that separation. Like we got to heal our hearts. We have feelings. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
have feelings, right? And
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that's gonna go on that may hurt those feelings. And self-medicating may not, or let me not even say may not, is not the best answer for that or the answer for that. So when we talk about all of these different traumas, Natalie, do you believe that people who experience homelessness should seek mental help at some point?
I honestly do, and I'm speaking from personal experience. And because you can learn to deal with trauma and turn the volume down on your triggers, but they're still there. So until you address it, you definitely should seek mental. And once again, I'm not shying away from who I am in Christ, but I love what Crystal said about the heart, because it is a heart thing. We turn the volume down with different things. Your grandfather, uh, Turquan, was a heroin addict. He passed away. He passed away as a recovering heroin addict. But he told me one time, I was a young girl and I found his works, and I was so upset. I think I was only like 11, and they would use a little soda cap and they would melt the heroin in and put the needle in, and it was called a cooker. And he says, sis, don't cry. Everyone has a cooker. Everyone uses something to turn the volume down with. So I love what Crystal said. Even though he turned the volume down on his addiction, he was able to heal his heart and come back. And that's how he was able to spend time with you and with your dad and with me, you know, because he healed his heart. So that, I think, not just the mental piece of it. I think it's several facets of it, not just the mental, but the heart as well. Because I've seen people that, to me, the mental part, the trauma and the abuse that they have, was bad, but their heart was okay, and I think that's what got them out of that. Um,
Yeah,
that piece of it, their heart was good. You know what I mean? Their heart was broken, but it wasn't traumatized. It was fixable. Yeah.
right, right. And when we look at that, how important is a support system if you have one?
You
Because
have.
I think that sometimes people go through homelessness, and it
Mhm.
may not be that they don't have a support system. They just may not have someone who's in a position to help. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we think just because let's say I have a home, that means that I have the capability to let you in the home, or because
Mhm.
I have a job, that means I have enough money to pay your rent, right?
Mhm.
But how important is it to have some sort of support, even if it's just emotional, mental?
Yeah.
How important is that, Natalie?
I think that's very important. There was a time I remember my ex-husband told me I was running a shelter because anybody that was homeless, I'd let them come stay because of my traumas as a child, and I had a lot of heartbreaks because you can't help everybody. Your grandfather again told me, your grand uncle said, I will not take away the right for anyone to hit rock bottom. And he said, you're a rescuer, Natalie, but it's very, very important, a support system. But I find that in order to do a support system, we have to become vulnerable. And that's something as black and brown people we don't do, because people have already stereotyped us and stigmatized us. So we don't ever want anyone to see us as weak or vulnerable. So we
Mm,
suck it up
mm,
and we don't
yeah.
share. But I love what Tiffany said. It's very important. You've got to have someone that you trust. And that person doesn't
Hmm.
always look like you, and it's not always a family member. I learned to take the chip off my shoulder, because someone could be walking around and you think they're fine. I'll use myself for an example. In 2014, after a bad divorce, a bad breakup, and then losing my mom, and not wanting to go back into corporate America in the capacity that I was used to, because I felt my heart was broken, and working at a shelter. Crystal, if you don't mind if I share, working at a
No, yeah,
shelter,
you're fine.
yeah, meeting Crystal, they put me on a pedestal, but what they didn't realize, they thought I was working 7 days a week because I loved them. I was working 7 days a week because I needed them, because they were so vulnerable with me. I could be
Yeah.
vulnerable with them. They helped me heal. So that's the key. I think when we get in positions that we don't want people to think that we're something that we're not. You know what I'm saying? And being understanding and having a safe environment. That's the thing. I would look at them and I would pray for them, and I would say, Lord, thank you for, hear me when I say this. Thank you for allowing Crystal to be homeless and not me, because I probably would have lost my mind. And she's stronger than me, and she ministers to me. And let me be here for her and help her navigate the system any way I can. And that's always been my prayer when I encounter someone in the role that I'm in. Let me help them navigate the system, because I need them more than they need me. So the support is two ways. If we're
Yeah.
vulnerable enough to admit that, it's not just the person sitting on the other side of the desk. One of my dearest friends I met when I worked at the welfare office, she was on the other side of the desk, and she is one of my dearest friends. She tells the story, I don't, but I just loved her because I could be vulnerable.
Yeah. 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 That support system is,
Mm,
it's a special thing when you have it. It's a
yeah.
special thing when you have it, some sort of support. And I really love what you said, because you just had a vulnerable moment now to even say, like, God, you knew to make it this person and not me, only because, not because they deserved it, but because it would have been a wrap. Like, it would have been a
It'd
wrap
been a
for
wrap.
me.
It would have been a wrap. There's no way
Like
I could have went through what Crystal went through. It would
it
have been
would
a
have,
wrap. Yeah.
like, and it's no better way to say that. But now, when we look at things that we go through, and I know this for me personally, this is just my perspective. And I personally believe that that saying when they talk about the glass being half full and half empty,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's all about perspective. You can either see it half full or you can see the glass half empty. And I'm a firm believer, if you change the way that you look at things, the things around you change. So
Hmm.
just being able to look at things and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I went through this. Yes, I didn't like this. Yes, this was traumatic. But now when I encounter somebody with this situation, or I encounter somebody who has gone through something similar, or even somebody where I've learned something from this experience,
Hmm.
now I can give that back to them. It's
Hmm.
life changing. And I talk about this all the time on the podcast. Just even doing the podcast was because I've encountered so many people that don't even know that in small
Hmm.
conversation, like just us sitting around the table talking, I learned so much, and I realized that that's how we'll all grow.
Yeah.
Everybody brings what they bring to the table. This is why I don't limit my topics to current events or stuff that's popular and stuff like that. This is why we dive into topics like this, because this is going to be a conversation for everybody that's watching, for everybody that's listening. or will listen. You may not need it right now, but one day this might be your situation or someone's who's close to you, and you're going to remember legal aid.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
first thing that's
Yeah.
going to pop in your head is legal aid, services, like just keywords that you never knew that you
Yeah.
would need is going to be
Hmm.
right here. So I'm thankful for all of the situations that I've gone through and everybody that's been able to make it out of this situation. You know, like
Mhm.
Crystal, like Natalie, like you guys, because everybody's gone through something. To now be able to share that with somebody else, to help push people forward. So looking at homelessness, we talked about you know where it kind of starts, some things that come with homelessness, like trauma. Now I kind of want to shift just a little bit, and I want to talk more so about not just getting out of homelessness, but staying out. Right.
Mhm.
And you know that term in the shows and stuff like that when the wife is yelling at the husband and she like, get out and stay out. Right.
Stay
Um,
out.
right.
Yes.
That's what I want. That's what I want for anybody that's dealing with this, anybody that will deal with this in the future. Like, how do I get out? Remember those steps that I talked about. I need a plan, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
What's that saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I need a plan. Like, how do we get out? How do we stay out? One of the
Mhm.
things I think about when I think about homelessness, and I think it's one of the first things outside of
Stop.
outside of vices and addiction. Um, and Crystal, I'm pretty sure you can speak to this with the experience that you have in the shelters and things of that sort. How much of a part does financial literacy play
Mm.
in homelessness?
I feel that it plays a huge role. If you become self-sufficient, then there's no need for you to go backwards. It's all upward from, once you learn how to manage your money, once you get stable. I was thinking about, how they have like I said, the housing first model, right? So if they're putting people into homes, right? People that are experiencing homelessness, they get put into homes. But what are they showing them? Are they having those wraparound services to
That's
be
it.
able to show them
Mhm.
how to manage their, to do a budget, to, how, what to spend on food, what to put away for a rainy day, so that you're not back at that place struggling and, or falling back on, doing bad stuff to get that money, and it's
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
you have to, yeah, you have to learn, you have to learn it all, to get to that point. And it's not easy. Just like myself, I was like, oh, well, now I have to budget for, I have to make sure I have money to get to work,
Mhm.
for gas. I have to make sure that I put this away so I can eat something, even if it is pop ramen, but you're eating something, I have to make
Right.
sure, it's like, you have to like learn all this stuff, and people are being put into a home with none of these skills, and then they're on the streets again, you
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
so
And that
yeah.
that's so powerful because I really think that that's something that we don't think about, right? I just had this conversation, and I know I've been sharing a lot of stories, so y'all bear with me. But
That's okay.
I like to make things practical, in ways that we can all understand. In the case that maybe some information might have went over somebody's head or something. But I remember having this conversation just earlier, with somebody, and I got a letter in the mail, for my basketball business, Kingdom Hoops LLC, and it was from American Express, right? And they wanted to give me some money. And one of my friends was like, "Oh man, you better get that. That's American Express. That ain't even. American Express. They be dropping the bag, like." And I laughed at him and I said, ultimately at some point, this might be something that I do go down the road and do, because my ultimate goal at some point is to build a gym.
Yeah.
And if my income, that I'm receiving at the time, can't fund that, I will have no problem with taking out a business loan, building the gym, and paying it back. But I told him, I said, but right now, I'm not producing enough income, in order to pay that back, as well as everything else that I'm paying back. So that would just become another expense and more debt,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
say that to say that we have to think about things like that when we think about not just homelessness, but when we talk about budgeting, and all of those
Yeah.
other things, right? if we don't budget correctly, we will end up in, like, we can put ourselves in a situation where we're struggling, all because and you might not even be spending too much. You might just be spending at the wrong times, right? Like if you just paid your rent, you might need to wait at the end of the month or the middle of the month before you buy the red bottoms. Like you can't pay your rent and get the red bottoms in the same week. Right? It may not
What
be.
was this, Natalie?
That's because she like them red bottoms. So I always make the
I
red
think
bottoms.
anyone that knows me knows that, Crystal, right?
So, but you might not, and it's not to say that you don't got
I
it.
can't even walk in them red bottoms.
Right? So it could just be wrong timing, and that's what budgets are for, right? Not saying that, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's saying, okay, I can do this, when I can do this, and how much I can do it. And Tiffany said in our comments, discipline. It all comes with discipline. You know, it all comes with discipline. So you know, financial literacy is something we all need, every last one of us, because there are things that we want. And learning how to spend, save, and share, and be disciplined is amazing. Like, you know, I got a cousin that I don't think she's ever leased or financed a car. She's had more cars than I've ever had, and the cars that she get do not be no joint that you hear from 3 blocks down. Like, you know, but she's disciplined, and I've seen that from afar. Like, we've never actually had a conversation about that, right? But I watch from afar, like, yo, like, she really save her money. Like, I don't know, you know, I don't know if she working extra hours, if she got a side hustle, I don't know what it is, but she takes her money, she put it here, she do this, and not, you know, so she don't owe nobody. So financial literacy is important, right? I'm gonna end my ramble with that. Financial literacy is so important, and proper planning and budgeting. Natalie, why don't you speak to that? You know, the importance of not just financial literacy and knowing about the money, but how important planning is. Because if you guys don't know, Natalie is Queen Meeting. I think she she scheduled meetings with everyone from her children or her kid, me, her nephew. I think she scheduled meetings with God, her pastor.
I do. I do. I think, you know, it's so funny you said it because today it's rare when my daughter and I just get to hang out. And it wasn't planned, but I had some free time on the calendar. We went to lunch and we talked. And I told her, I said, I feel like if it doesn't get calendared, it doesn't get done. And she said, well, for her, she makes a to-do list because if she doesn't do it and it's on the calendar, she gets kind of discouraged and just doesn't do it. So she builds a to-do list. So I told her I calendar it and I have a to-do list. So if I schedule this time, say 7 to 8 to work on something and I don't do it, it's still on my to-do list. So it's going to eventually get back on the calendar and get done. So I definitely believe in planning. I do. And I can learn in public. I went off the grid for a couple of weeks, you know, calling myself falling head over heels in love. And I still am in love, but I got my right mind back. But I just went off the grid. I just didn't plan anything. If I woke up and I felt like I wanted to go for a walk on the beach or out to breakfast or just kind of hang out, that's what I did. And it was fun, but I'm like, no, this is not constructive to what I'm planning on doing. So I have to. So now I'm glad that I'm falling in love with someone that understands. He'll say to me, "What's your calendar look like?" You know, and he's like, "Can I get on your calendar?" You know. So yeah, I think that we have to plan, even if it's planning on just going on a date with someone you care about, because you can get in trouble, and your nephew can threaten to fire you as one of the co-producers because you didn't plan properly. So yeah, I do plan, and I tried it. I tried not planning, and I messed up. So maybe others can do it, but I can't. I have to plan and calendar stuff. I have to.
Yeah. In one of our episodes, one of our past episodes, we talked about the poverty mindset. And then we also, one of those things we talked about the success routine. And the speaker in the message that we were referencing, he said that one of the things that most people would say about successful people, millionaires, is that they all have a routine. right?
Yeah.
And he said, and they do not deviate from that routine. And then he went on to make a joke, and he said, you know, y'all don't think that the devil tried to tempt me? Like he be trying to tempt me or whatever, but my routine, my schedule is so
Mhm.
booked up that by the time he trying to tempt me, it's time for me to go to sleep. Like, nah, you want to do this? Yeah, you're right, but I'm gonna go to sleep, right?
Mhm.
So when you have a routine, you stick to that routine. It creates less room for error, and
Mhm.
more room
Mhm.
for productivity. And then you add and take things out depending on what you need. And just to bring it back full circle about homelessness, having that routine will put you in a space where you're used to budgeting, you're used to paying things. Now, when people are calling you to go to certain events and you like, nah, I'm sorry, I can't make it. They already know you're not going because they know you only got $40 a month to of going out money. So if the entry fee to these last two parties was $20, yeah, I know I'm not coming because I only got $40 to spend on this. Not I only got $40, but I only got $40 to spend on this, right?
Yeah.
And getting the people around you familiar and used to your schedule and you planning, so you can avoid being in situations and stay out of situations like poverty and homelessness. Um, Crystal, for you in your experiences and being able to overcome homelessness and now be in a stable living space, how
Homeowner.
important
Homeowner. I'm
oh,
sorry.
homeowner, excuse
Reinterject
me,
that.
now being a
Homeowner. Owner. She ain't Rain.
Exactly.
excuse me,
Is that okay? Is that okay? I'm sorry.
Yes.
excuse me, now
Is that okay to
no,
say that? Can I
no,
say
that's
that on the air?
Yes.
I'm excited.
Home, home,
I'm
homeowner.
excited.
Yes.
So
Yes,
now,
I feel.
look at the narrative, guys. Like, and this is one of the reasons. Like, people always tell me why you don't try to get people like Oprah or people that's like Instagram famous, because it's not like it almost feels like once they become famous, then like they're real people, but it's just not like, all right, that was you was one of the few that. But now to sit here, this is a woman like you and me, right?
Mhm.
She definitely make a lot more money than I do, but like you and me nonetheless, right? You guys have heard her story from having what that dual diagnosis, dealing with two issues at one time,
I seen it, Quan. It's not a.
having
It's for
trauma
her. Yes.
from her early childhood to being able to make that decision, make that change in her heart, make that change in her mind, say, this is what I'm going to do. Not
Mhm.
only overcome that and get into a place, right? Because sometimes the goal is like, I'm going to get into a place, I'm going to rent a little apartment or something. This woman is a home owner. Like after all of those things that she's been through, she is now a home owner. So if that doesn't motivate, I don't know what will. I know the old preachers will say that'll preach real good. So, but you know, being through all that you've been through, Crystal, in your experience, how important is credit in getting out of and staying out of homelessness?
Oh man. So like your FICO score, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Credit. Oh my goodness. So I thought in my head I was like, wow, I think my credit is super bad. I didn't want to apply for anything. I didn't even want to apply for an apartment because I thought, no, my credit's really bad. You don't know what you don't know unless you get your credit run, right?
Mhm.
So I'm sitting here thinking in my head that I had the worst credit. I had better credit than my husband. They put me,
Wow.
and like so we started slowly building, our credit back up by getting, like the what is it called? It's like a credit card where you put your money into it and then you build
Secured,
up from
a
there, right?
secured, a
Secured
secured
credit
credit
card.
card.
There you go. Yeah,
Mhm.
secured
Mhm.
credit card. So then we
Mhm.
ended up getting, one of those. We ended up getting a car in both our names. So then we started making the payments. That started bringing up our credit score. When I was in the program, I said to myself, I did a vision board, right? So on that vision board was the car. I did the car. Okay, I got my new car off the lot. Okay, cool. We're paying that. You know, Another thing was getting a good job. I started working at McDonald's when I was in the program. So I was a manager at a local McDonald's near the rescue mission where I was staying. So then on the vision board, I placed a house. I said, in 5 years, I want to own a home. Well, 5.5 years later, I bought my home, and so that was a goal. And I think just making sure that you're on top of your credit, you don't, like you said, you don't buy anything that you don't need, no red bottoms for me. No red bottoms for me, Miss Natalie.
What size shoe
But
you wear? We're gonna see about that.
Size 7. So my birthday just passed, Miss Natalie. So it was, just making sure that we had the necessities and not going crazy and getting the things that we didn't need, and
Yeah.
we stuck by that, and we budgeted out, what we could use, all this stuff. And once we started seeing our credit go up, I said, during this pandemic, I said, man, we need to jump on an opportunity. We got a stimulus, we got another stimulus, we saved that money, and we ended up putting in a down payment on a house. We didn't spend any money during the pandemic because we couldn't go nowhere.
Right. Right.
And yeah,
No
and so
Amazon
we ended up,
shopping.
right, and we ended up getting a manufactured home, which fell right under, our budget, and we were blessed with a nice little house. So
Nice. Nice. That's amazing.
my thing, I say, we went from homeless to hopeful, and
Yeah.
homeowners.
Yeah. I like
Homeless
that.
for homeowners. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that on the t-shirt and send it to you.
Do it.
That was it. That was it right there. No, don't worry, Natalie. That wasn't a shot about the Amazon. That was for Amy when she watched this. She just
Amy is his mother.
she had 5 packages coming today. Today, she ain't even here. 5 packages coming. So now she gonna kill me. Natalie, and you guys in the comments, right? I really want you guys in the comments. I know usually I say, hey guys, comment in the comments and give me how you feel about this. But this is a statement that I think applies to a lot of different things. And I want to get everybody's take on it, right? As it relates to homelessness. Or just life in general, right? If you've never experienced it and you really don't know how it relates to homelessness, I just want to know your take on this phrase. And the phrase is, it takes a village.
Yeah.
It takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, what does that mean to you?
It takes a village. I think that that's something that they gave one of the president's wives credit for, first of all, and that came out of our community, because it does take a village. And it's not just, I look up here and I see the people. I see Adrienne, I see Tiffany, and the other Tiffany and Natalie, and I see them and your dad on here making comments. We're a village, when it takes a village, no one is going to stay down. Crystal has that same mentality. Crystal is very modest, but I observe Crystal from afar. If someone was in trouble, Crystal was always there. If it meant getting in the shelter at a certain time to get your food, and she didn't see someone that didn't make that deadline, she was going to pack them up something and put it in her bag. And I'll be looking at the resident person talking about, you better not search her bag. Like, she always looked out for someone. That's a part of the village. She's very modest, but it takes, to build a village, you have to care. You have to love, that's what it takes. But that's my take on a village. It's not just our village. I know that, I love what my namesake says, unity. We have to be in unity, We can't just do it on our own, but we have to go outside our immediate village and reach out to others too. We can't look at someone and say, oh, they're homeless, they're begging with a cup. What could we do to make a difference? That's the village that we need, I think about.
Yeah. We are better
How
together.
about you, Crystal? What's your take on that?
Yeah. Like I said, we're better together, we speaking, as us, like being a community, we can't turn a blind eye and pretend that homelessness doesn't exist,
Right.
People kind of walk past you and you're like, you know, I had so many people look at me, you know, just like in disgust, or would say mean things to me. You know, it's like, what part of that, or you know, what role are you playing in that? You know, like I said, you can't turn a blind eye. You know, you have to address that. You know, it's in our community. It's happening here. It's right in front of us. You know, what are we gonna do about it? You know, there's a there's a bunch of people that'll post stuff on Facebook, and sometimes it makes me really upset, because I'm just like, how are you going to sit there and complain, you know, when you have to approach it differently? You know, you can't just complain and do nothing about it. You know,
Right.
what are you doing is my question. What are
Mhm.
you doing? You know, that's the question that you have to ask yourself. And then also, like, any of the nonprofits out there that are working towards combating homelessness, we have to work stronger together. You
Yes.
know, we have to work stronger together. And like, to me, no one agency is better than the other. You know, we each play a role. You know, but there's just some agencies that are more unique than others, that handle things differently. You know, but to me, having a place where you can start your healing process, you
Yeah.
know, is we need, you know, and you know, being able to provide those services, you know. And there's so much money out there supposedly for to help the people that are experiencing homelessness, and where is it? You know, where is it? Because I don't see any of the stuff that they promised. You know, oh, we're you know, giving this money for the home to use towards homelessness. Where is it? You
I
know,
still don't take me
so
there.
I know, I'm like, oh, it makes me mad.
We're
You
gonna be here
know,
another
and it's
hour.
like,
Where
yeah,
is the
so
money? Whew.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, just in San Diego alone, there's over 10,000 people living on the streets of San Diego County alone. You know, and
Yeah.
that's just the people that they counted. That's not counting the
Yeah.
people that are in the trenches somewhere, you know,
Mhm.
that they didn't reach, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's like, you know, those are just the people that they counted, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy, and it's just it's kind of, it makes me upset, you know, because you know, they talk about all this money going towards helping, but yet
Mhm.
right.
I slowly see, you know, services being, you know, that are, you know, diminishing, you know. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, I don't
I
know.
have a seat at the table sometimes, and I'm talking to directors, and my thing to them is stop contracting it out and letting profit for profit agencies get
Right.
this
Yeah.
nonprofit in county only,
Yeah.
because the
Mm-hmm.
salaries, and I'm talking about me, the salary that they paid me to administer some of these programs is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
worth it, but it was ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, they've gotta put that money back in the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree
I
with you,
agree.
Chris.
I agree. And
Yeah.
it's conversations like this, right, that may not have someone take a homeless person into their home, but if you
Right.
know someone that's homeless, now we've been equipped with different information, with firsthand experience on how to help, right? And helping is not
Yeah.
always a
Yeah.
dollar. Helping is not
Right.
always bringing them in. Helping might just be, I can point you in the right direction,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
you don't have to
Yes.
be the person to make sure
Mhm.
this person never goes home, but you can put them in a place
Yeah.
put them in a room with
Yeah.
people that can help
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah.
So, and
Mhm.
we all know someone that's like that, right? And the more
Yeah.
that we better ourselves, the more that we can better the people around us. So now I can say for myself, I learned a lot. If I was ever homeless, at any point after this conversation, I know where to go.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if a friend of mine was ever homeless, at the end of this conversation, I know a place where I can direct him to go or her to
Right.
go. Like,
Right.
Right.
and that's what it's all about.
Mhm.
Us
Yeah.
bettering ourselves, in order to strengthen the collective. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that wraps up homelessness episode number 20. I learned a lot. This was super fun for me. I never laughed so much about red bottoms in my life. Um,
Size
this,
seven, right?
so Natalie, do you have anything for our viewers before we head out?
No, other than just I'm loving the comments. I love being here so I could see them. We are the village, you know. That's what I want us to keep in mind. And I just want us to work harder at supporting one another
Yeah.
and being there. You're right. They might not you know, she said, what if they don't want to change or face the truth when you do? Then get them a warm meal and a shower.
Yeah.
And show them, they got a showers program in Coronado, Imperial Beach. Lead them to the place and follow up on them, and help them address that, help them to heal their heart. Mental illness and homelessness and broken hearts go hand in hand.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep. Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Crystal, you got anything for our viewers? I have to say viewers and listeners now because we're now on Anchor, Spotify, Google Play, Google Podcast. I mean, so I have to say viewers and listeners. So, you have anything for our viewers and
um.
listeners before we head out?
Yeah. Just to I would advise people to educate themselves on the services that are out there. So if
Hmm.
they ever do come across somebody that's experiencing homelessness, they're able to lend that hand. Like you said, it doesn't have to be $1. It doesn't have to be even a meal. But hey, this is a service. This is what you could tap into. There's always 211. Each city has its own 211.
Yeah,
So or each county, I should say, has their own 211. There's so many services that they could tap into through that. And to be able to know that and um, just have that education on that stuff, then they're able to lend that service to them.
yeah.
I love this conversation. I always love to have conversations with people that you can tell they have a heart, right?
Hmm.
I personally feel like, and it's sad to say, I feel like that hate is being pushed on us. Whether, and this is off topic, but the episode is over, so I'm gonna rant a little bit. I hate to see hate being pushed on people so much, and people being so angry, and it's like, oh, I don't care for this, I don't care for that. I want to
Hmm.
be by myself, and we weren't created to be alone.
Right.
Contrary to popular belief, if you look at any species, and I'm not just talking like male and female, but if you look at any species, unless it's a dying species, there's not only one, right?
Hmm.
Like we were never created to be alone. I think
Right.
that's a tactic of a bigger agenda
Yeah.
that I'll talk about with anybody that wants to talk about that personally. But I think that's a tactic of a bigger agenda, and I
Yeah.
think that we need to learn to love, not even just when it comes to homeless people. When it comes to our family, when it
Everybody.
comes
Yeah.
to our friends, people around us, people we encounter, people at work, not realizing that, and I said this last episode, everything that we do, well, no matter what job you have, is to service someone else. But yet
Yeah.
when they come in, if you're at McDonald's, when they come in for that burger, you mad. This
Hmm.
is what you here for, to serve them the
Yeah.
burger. Like,
Serve.
if you
Yes.
work behind the desk and you at customer service and somebody called because they don't know how to, where the off button is at on their phone. This is what you get paid for.
Right.
But we just
Hmm.
we like, I think we're just pushing so much anger out there in
Yeah.
the world. So I think we really need to get to a point where we understand that we were made to live harmoniously.
Did y'all see
And
it? It just checked in.
we were made to live
Wow.
harmoniously, and not by ourselves. And so, wow, that was interesting.
And
Interesting comment.
Facebook can track it. Leave it in there. Facebook can track it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
guys, thank you so much for your time. You could have been doing anything else, but you guys were here with us talking about this crucial topic. Cannot wait for next episode. This one is going to be a spoiler, or I'm not going to spoil it until Thursday. So Thursday, look forward for the update for next episode. Crystal, thank you so much.
Thank
Natalie,
you.
You're
thank you
welcome.
so
You're
much.
welcome.
And I just want to let you guys know before we head out, do not forget that a better me equals a better we. I will see you guys next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Have a great night.
Bye.
Okay.